Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Vision radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Vision radio show. Thank you for joining us today. Today is February 8th. It's Monday. And on Monday, this show has adopted St. Louis until they get some final remediation, which means I actively seek out activists to share with us information about the catastrophe, the environmental and radiological catastrophe that's been ongoing for a long time, at least 40 years that we know about. So today I have back on with us someone that I interviewed once before, just as he was getting started. A lot of people in St. Louis, like myself, have just really gotten up to speed on like, wow, what's happened? And with us, we have a man named Scotty he originally has his contracting company, Scotty's Contracting. He is starting a new company called MoHemp Hazmat Division. And I wanted to bring him back on because he has solutions that will actually remediate the soil immediately in St. Louis from the radiological catastrophe. So thank you, Scotty, for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ms. Clark, and the viewers, and thank you, UCY-TV, for having me on again.
Well, please call me Lonnie.
It's a pleasure.
Please call me Lonnie. It's okay. So.
Okay, thank you, Lonnie.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, the last time that you were on, we were talking about remediating the soil. You had come up with an idea that actually is a known factor, and you were about to get busy applying for contracts and government contracts to actually fix this problem that's ongoing in St. Louis. Tell us what happened since the last time we talked. I know that you were about to make some applications. Tell us that journey. What happened?
What I realized with my original plan was that it met all their guidelines, but I had just been using what I call street lingo, which is just how I classify things, how I explain it, and this did not meet their guidelines. So I wasn't following their rules and regs, even though everything I want to do they're saying is correct. I have to use their terms, their terminology. If I'm going to play with the big dogs, I have to follow the rules.
So what does that mean? What were the rules that you weren't following? Like, explain to us what you needed to correct.
There's just it's mostly terminology. Like instead of I have to spell things out exactly what the plant's going to do with the toxins. The process called phytoextraction, whether it's by using in the roots, it's phytostabil. I don't know. It's just a bunch of big scientific words that the people, like the average person, doesn't even understand. And so I was not including them in my proposal because I want community involvement. The disconnect between the scientific community and the people is the words they use. I tried to eliminate those words so that the average Joe would understand what I'm doing. Well, they might understand, and the scientific community would probably get it, but because I wasn't using their terms and following their format, they didn't accept my stuff. Anyway,
so you have to use scientific format.
I have to,
scientific language in order for them to even consider it.
Yes, the whole thing. Wow. My proposal has to follow all their rules of submitting and everything to a T. But anyway, since then, I take webinars by these people to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Well, the last webinar I took was EPA sponsored cleanup as the topic. Anyway, I took the class to figure out why the EPA wasn't helping the people of Bridgeton.
Yeah.
And I typed that in, and I presented that to the bigwigs, and they read it. They actually read my comment on air, where it wasn't a question, it was a statement. And they didn't. Nobody had an answer.
There was no response.
There wasn't. Right. Because nobody knows why they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Well, anyway, in regards to nuclear, I can tell you exactly why they don't do what they're supposed to do. Because after World War II, they adopted the 90% rule, hard and fast, in regards to nuclear. The 90% rule means that they underreport the negative effects of radiation by 90% and deny that radiation causes harm. That's what they've been doing. And that's what we're fighting. That's what you're fighting. Because in order for you to get in to remediate it, they have to actually acknowledge how terrible it is. So bring us up to speed. Bring us up to speed with, okay, you're taking these things, and how are you going to remediate it? Explain this process of remediation it's a really brilliant concept. Explain what the process is to remediate the radiological catastrophe in the Westlake landfill in Coldwater Creek.
My proposal works in the top, like 2-foot layer of the soil. And it works by where we put a plant in the ground, and then while that plant is growing, it's pulling the toxins out of the ground into the roots of the plant, and then the plant cycles the toxins up into the plant or stores them in the roots.
Wow.
And
that's a known factor. And that will actually remove the toxins from the soil. It'll take the radioactive toxins and absorb it into the plant.
Yes, it will. And that makes it easily harvested to where it can be removed from the area.
Wow. And is there any place on the planet that's using that method? Do you know of?
It's currently being done at Chernobyl. They're studying it for Fukushima. I believe they probably already are using it there.
Wow.
It's been going. There's a study in Colorado that they're using it on mining soil toxins. It's worldly done, just not so much in the USA.
Mm-hmm. Because of, why do you think we're not doing it?
When we're talking, it's a slow process. Okay, which brings us, it's not one that works overnight.
How long does it take? It
takes 3 to 5 years. through through the normal process. Anyway, back to what my team's doing is we're combining the plant stuff with electrohorticulture, which is a way of sending electronic pulses through the ground. That speeds up the movement of the toxins as well. And then it wants to bring them towards the electro part, which is also placed by the roots of the plant, which absorb the toxins.
Well, so how many people are with you on your team? You say our team.
There's 3 immediate people.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then as well is another thing we're incorporating into it to improve the soil health is how do I explain this one? It's uses microbes.
I know about.
We're creating a micro-rich environment to help cycle the toxins as well. Nice. And then that micro-rich environment also acts as a water purifier.
I understand that. I know on my garden in my backyard, I don't put pesticides or chemicals. I get like this microbe powder. I was shown you order this microbes and you put a little bit of molasses in a big bucket of water. You let the water sit for 24 hours to get the chlorine out, let the chlorine release. You add the microbes in a quarter of a cup of molasses and stir it up. You put it on your garden, and I'm not kidding, my plants grow so big. The microbes are really an amazing product.
Okay, what's that? What when you put that on a plant, that's called cheatling. These are all the words I didn't use.
Oh.
But anyway, that's another word called cheatling.
Okay.
And what you're doing is you're stimulating the roots.
Right.
That's also part of what we're doing.
Right, because the toxins
and so
go into the roots.
we're gonna, our goal here and the tests we're running are gonna either prove or disprove that our process will speed up the toxins. Because that in everything I read, it says, yes, phytoremediation is great, it's cheaper, da-da-da-da-da, but it takes too long. Or, we got to get these toxins out of the soil quickly, fastly. It's screwing everybody up. I think they're coming around to this. They're actually working towards this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think 3 to 5 years is not that slow, considering it's been under the ground now for 70 years. So to fix this gigantic problem in 3 to 5 years is actually quite quick. You know what I mean? Like, that's much faster than what the government's even attempted to do. I was told that just to dig out the containers in the Coldwater Creek landfill, a guest came on and told me that it took 18 years. They just completed the cycle. It took 18 years to move the bulk of the toxins out of the landfill. And they still have tons of contamination there. So that was kind of a half fix. So if you tell me you can plant some plants on top of this remaining landfill and bring in a cycle of plants, because I imagine what's going to happen is that you'll grow the plants, they get absorbed to their maximum capacity, and then you have to grow new ones, correct?
And then I have to what?
Then you grow new ones. It's not just a one-time like you grow.
Oh yeah, it's a yearly thing.
Yeah, but what I mean is, at the end of, let's say, a 3 to 5 year cycle, when the plant has absorbed as much toxins or radiological contamination as it can, there may be more contamination beneath it, so you have to put in more plants. Correct? Isn't that how that will work? It's not just a one-stop shop.
Well, hopefully at the end of the 5 years, 3 to 5 years, that all the toxins are removed.
Well, my guess would be there is so much toxins that we're dealing with a whole industry that doesn't.
That's honestly, that's too far in the future to even, I can't. That's something I can't get.
You can't wrap your mind around yet. Yeah.
No. What I'm saying is I don't know. I can think my plants the plants will take out this much. Does that mean that it's going to cure what's buried underneath it? Probably not. So that means they're going to have to grow forever.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But see, it's not meant for every spot.
Oh, okay.
It's not a cure-all. It's not going to, them barrels that are buried 20 feet deep, it's the roots, it's not going to help that area.
Right, those 20-foot deep barrels, they need to be moved, right?
Right, they got to be done. Something has to be done with them. And that's what I don't want everybody to misunderstand. It's like, hey, he's got this plant that's going to take care of them barrels. No. But when they move all that dirt around, it's going to be contaminated.
Right.
Okay, and then they're going to put it back in the hole. They're going to dig a hole, take that stuff out, put that dirt back in that hole, or haul that dirt away. Well, in the end, some of that, it's still, those toxins are still going to be in some of the soil, possibly, or in the surrounding area, because the wind, I'm getting soil reports from just Joe Blow off the street, and they're saying, they're getting wind-blown toxins.
Yeah, of course they are. That's what radiation does. It goes into the air, into the soil, and into our food supply. That's exactly what it does.
Right. So we're going to stop all that.
Well, what kind of plant is it that you plan on using?
Since there's a few plants out there that'll work. I prefer the ones that will be able to turn into an energy source at the end of the plant's life. Cannabis plants are good. They are heavy toxin absorbers, but since cannabis isn't legal to grow everywhere in the U.S., I picked a strain of cannabis called Canaf.
Okay.
Because Canaf is legal to grow. It's like a sister to the cannabis plant.
Okay. And what makes it not? What's the difference between that and the cannabis plant?
There is no THC.
Okay. So is that the kind of plant that they would use, say, if they were going to make hemp in this country? Is that what they use to make hemp?
It's like the hemp plant, but it's just not the same, classified the same.
Okay. So hemp is actually the cannabis plant, and the Canaf is actually a different plant.
Right. It'd be like a cousin.
Okay. That sounds good. And so what is the proposed process? What happens? How does this work? What's the process that you're proposing?
We plant the seeds. The baby just woke up.
I heard your baby. She wants you to talk to her.
Yeah. We're going to go in the other room here.
Okay. That's sweet. That's totally adorable.
Anyway, the process works by, we put the seed in the ground and we do it in a way that doesn't disrupt the soil, because that's what's going to additionally spread toxins around. So we developed this way that we can, or it's not, we didn't develop it. It's called no-till farming, where you disrupt the soil the least amount possible.
Okay.
Anyway, so we're going to no-till farm the seed in the ground, and then we're going to, at the same time or soon thereafter, install the electro-horticulture system by Mr. David Welcher. Anyway, and then that's going to, and then we install the molecular helper stuff.
Okay, you mean I'm sorry, I'm at a loss.
On a hillside, the correct term are riparian buffers.
Are what? Say that again?
Yeah, exactly. Riparian buffers.
Uh-huh.
It's a way to to control water on a hillside. But it's a technical term.
That's interesting. So that's obviously one of those technical terms you did not use in your original proposal.
Right.
And that they want to see in their proposals, so they know that you understand the process of doing this work.
Exactly.
In other words, you can't use simple language because you have to prove to them that you understand the science of soil remediation.
Right. You know, it's one of the very first really super educated environmentalists that looked at my proposal said, you have everything there.
Wow.
You have everything you need. But I wasn't, she probably said it, I didn't listen or I didn't catch it right away, was that I have to do it in the format they will accept it in.
Mm-hmm.
And
you have to use the correct language. You have to use the precise language. The key words that they want to see have to be in your proposal.
Right. Anyway, because of that last webinar and that statement I made, they referred me to places that are online that help people just like me. And then I also learned there's places that the public is requested to get involved with every nuclear or toxic thing going on in our world. And they have programs and help to do this.
Do you know any of the names of those programs offhand that we could refer to? Where do we go to look for those?
The IT, it's either ITRC or IT. Let me see. The ITRC is a good spot.
Okay.
And then there's also one called Clue In. That's CLUIN.
Clue In. Okay. And those are government-run or government-sponsored sites?
Yes.
Okay.
And here's what I've realized, is that all these people making all these regulations and rules and whether they're called stakeholders or industry, whatever, if you look on the bottom of all this nuclear stuff, has all the same signatures.
That's interesting. So it seems to be kind of a little closed unit, correct?
Right. Or there's just not that many people interested or trained in these areas.
Well, I just plugged into the ITRC. You got that right. That's exactly. It says it comes out of Cal Poly. It's called Interstate Technology and Regulatory Council. So people could actually go to the ITRC and learn how to implement new guidelines and how to gain the skills to get actively engaged.
And what's more important is how to understand what they're talking about.
Right.
Because they have to give definitions. Because it's so complex and because government rules say, hey, that, you know, if somebody picked this up, they got to be able to read it. So they have to give the definitions.
Okay. And Clue In is actually looks like it's run by, I checked that one in also. Thank you for these sites. Clue In is run by the EPA. It's got a drop down menus where it says Federal Remediation Technologies Roundtable, Green Remediation. I think that's what you're talking about is green remediation, right? That's right. Considered green remediation. It talks about contaminants. I see what you're saying. This is an interesting bit of a topic here, is that the government has actually set up these websites so people can actively engage and get involved in it, but nobody even knows they're around. There's no advertising of them at all. I've never heard of these sites in 3 years, Scotty.
Right. I don't. Anyway, they're there. And
well, congratulations for finding them.
What else is that to each state has their own division that handles this as well.
Right.
And that and there's programs. I have investment companies that are interested in funding my research, but I'm afraid that they're going to take it away from the people.
Yes. Yes.
And so I'm not wanting to jump at the boat to accept their financing. Mm-hmm. And so I am searching and going to apply for grants so that a big company doesn't steal our inventions, process, whatever, and prohibits other people from using it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. What you want to do is leave this open so people, the average citizen, can use it, because once a corporation gets involved, they call it proprietary knowledge, and then no one else is allowed to do it, which no doubt they're doing on their own anyways. I mean, that's that whole story about the fuel process, right? That same thing happened here. I had friends of mine who they found a way to make gasoline out of the mold that comes out of the water. They had been working on it for like 3 or 4 years. They went to a big, gigantic conference up in Seattle and came home so deflated because what they discovered at this conference was that all the big oil companies, Exxon, Mobil, ConocoPhillips, they all had the same process, and it was all patented. So here they thought they had come up with this invention, and it is well known and summarily suppressed. In fact, their method of doing it had already been patented by one of these oil companies. So they do exactly what you say that they're doing is they get the idea and then they patent it and then they bury the patent, they bury the solution to maximize their profits. It's unconscionable. So where are you at now with your process of phyto? Well, the plant that you're using, did we go through that one, the canaf? I don't know if I asked you about that, the canaf.
Can you repeat that last little part again?
The plant that you're using, it's your company name is called MoHemp.
MoHemp.
Hazmat division, but you're not actually using the hemp plant. You're using the canaf plant, correct?
Correct.
And that can be used in every state in the union because it is not considered a drug plant.
Correct.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for thinking of that. That's really awesome. So what is your process now? Where are you at, and what do you foresee in the near future with your process?
Right now, we have 2 tests going. The scientific community call them pot tests. It's just little individual experiments where you're growing the plant and monitoring it. We have 2 of them currently going right now. In the near future, we're going to have more pot tests on actual toxic soils. Some of the scenarios we're looking at is possibly I want to minimize disrupting the soil as much as possible.
Huh. That's actually really great, actually. That's actually really awesome. And then what will happen? I mean, how long will these experiments take?
What we're proposing is moving individual small greenhouses onto the actual properties.
Wow. And you would be wearing a hazmat suit, no doubt, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I've seen pictures of these guys doing the bulldozing up there and moving the dirt. They don't wear any type of hazmat suits. I mean, isn't that extremely doesn't seem like really sensible, because this is a nuclear dump site, right? I know in Hanford, all those people, they get suited up anytime they go out and move anything at all.
Right. There's a lot of questions I have. And that's why I've learned that, like my team, it can't just be me and my guys going out there and planting a plant. There's so many. I got to have 10 people with highly skilled backgrounds above me that are supposed to advise me.
Uh-huh.
Even though this is my idea, I got to have all these other people above me that say, "Hey, yes, this will work." So I put some dollar amounts to it, and it adds $250,000 onto the cost of the project. Where before, whatever I harvested paid for the project, paid for everything, to where it makes it a net zero money thing on the state. Now I'm negative.
Wow.
So now I have to I have to do something else to figure out how they're going to pay for it, or how it gets paid for.
Well, isn't that a request for funding? Like, isn't that one of the things you can go to this website that you shared with me?
Right. And I'm doing that.
Flew in.
But that's bullshit. You know,
Yes.
we're wasting taxpayer. That's $250,000 that could have been applied to 3 other spots to do to do a project of that size with.
I get what you're saying, Scotty, but I think that we're just buried deep in bullshit, if you don't mind me saying so. Like, this seems to be their method of operation. You know what I mean? Like, the more lies there are, the more comfortable the NRC and the EPA are. Like, they don't want us to talk very directly about that this is killing our planet. I mean, you talk to them and their eyes glaze over. I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched any NRC hearings in front of Congress, but their eyes just glaze over when the senators or the congressmen ask them direct questions about the harm of nuclear. They just kind of glaze over and, you know, turn into little robots and spout out what they're supposed to say. It's a shock, but it is the truth. So, but I mean, I agree with you that this is not something that we need to do, but I just think it's kind of a shock. I have to say, this issue to me, this is why it was very easy for me to adopt the cause of St. Louis on my radio show, because my radio show is relatively new. It started in September. And my whole focus is really exposing the lies of the nuclear industry, because until we expose the way they operate, we're not going to get anything done. And this is why I'm really excited to have you on, and I hope that you'll join us again in a month or 2 months from now, or whenever you want to come back and update us, because you're actually working through the process of bullshit. You're swimming through it. You know what I mean? Like, you are determined to make it work, and that's a valuable asset as a community member. We need people like you who are willing to go, okay, you don't like my proposal, I'll learn how to speak your language. Because that's really what's stopping you. You have a fabulous idea, but you're just not using the right words that they want to hear. It's kind of a shock for me. I find that stunning, that you have the right idea and they're not even willing to allow you to get in. Now, let me go back here. Do you know this ITRC place that, you know, you talked about it? You know, have you considered going to their annual meeting in April? Did you see that on the website? As I'm moving around, there's
I can't afford it as much as I would like to. But there's so many clauses in a grant. Like, if you accept this grant from this one place, you're required to attend something like that. And so you have to allocate that spot as well in your grant. And you have to figure out, they tell you how much, they send you to 3 different places to tell you how to figure out how to enter that into your grant proposal as well. Because they'll pay for it, but it has to be entered in the grant.
Oh, okay. So like this one, it says, please join.
They trip you up right there by making you have to go to 3 pages to get the information.
Yeah, well, that's kind of an intentional thing. That's the double talk of. That's how they do it. That's how they've been. I find that to be the number one tool that they have used to keep the public from being actively engaged. Is they really dog us with the details. Most people don't know how to. They don't comprehend the details. Like, the scientific lingo is so foreign to us. Like, even this ITRC website, it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota on April 22nd. 18 to the 22nd, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 5 days in Minnesota. So if you're not from Minnesota, you have to be able to go there and stay there for 5 days in order to participate, to learn what they're doing. And this is, you know, who most of us are working class people. Now maybe this is an idea. Have you started a GoFundMe page to see if people could get you funded to do that, or gone on to Pantheon, or what's it called, a Patreon, to see if you could find?
I'm gonna until I can I'm basing everything I'm doing off of other studies and stuff I've read. But until I actually have tangible results that I have shown on St. Louis soils and what I can do, is that I don't feel anybody's going to listen to me because I don't have the 7 additional letters behind my name. But I will have test results showing, hey, the soil went in at this and came out at this, and here's what we did to do that.
And will that take 3 years for you to get those test results, or will it take a shorter?
No, it will not. I'm expecting some results. We'll be testing the whole life of the plant, but I've read of test results done weekly.
Oh, awesome!
But that's additional cost with a lab,
right?
Or to have the existing lab equipment to measure the toxins in the soil.
Is there no lab in your area willing to do these test results for free? I mean,
there's labs in my area. I'm researching the labs, and I found a few. I found the one that I usually go to with my asbestos questions or asbestos testings for bad insulation. They also do the soil thing. And then there's a new up and coming invention by another soil or another environmental testing lab in St. Louis, where he's working on a mobile thing.
Good.
Which is even better because I won't have to take anything out of the field. We can do it all in the field.
Wow, that would be awesome. Well, these are really exciting ideas. I mean, this is exactly the kind of ideas that we need, because St. Louis is really just an indicator of the bigger mess all across our country. I mean, when we look at anybody can pull up on the Google Images a map of the nuclear contamination that happened during the weapons testing site. And we have over 400 nuclear sites east of the Mississippi. I mean, between the processing plants, nuclear reactors, and uranium mining. There's
hospitals. They have to go somewhere with their waste. They create when they take an X-ray.
Right.
There's lots of places this stuff is coming from.
Well, anybody who goes to this is another thing, since I've adopted the St. Louis cause, on Mondays I used to read the nuclear events. I used to go to the NRC website and read the event notification reports. It's on the NRC website, which I highly recommend to all of our listeners. Go to the NRC library, and you want to go to the electronic reading room, the document collections, reports for associated events, and then you can just type in event notifications at the NRC and it'll pop up. Because there is honestly, when I first started the radio show, I was doing this on every Monday, and it's not like they're lying. It's right out there in public. It's like you were saying with these 2 sites. The what's this name of it? The Clue In and the ITRC. There's places there, but people don't know about it. Same thing with the nuclear alerts. They're not hiding anything. It's all right there, but no one knows to even look. I frankly was dumbfounded when I first started this process that not only is it out there, but it is out there on to a point where they have over the legal limit is. Every single day there's reports going on at the NRC. Like just today there was a shipment exceeded the radiation limit in California. In San Bernardino, California. They did an NRC report. So I cannot imagine what is going on at the EPA's website inside there from the Westlake landfill. And it's just a complete shock. They know about this. This is not an accident. They have just decided not to tell anybody about it. So I'm excited, Scotty, that you're doing this. So what is your next part of the process? What's your plan that's coming up in the next, say, year? What's your next year projection of what your company is going to be doing?
I've found that there's state regulations are. I'm going to try, because of the headache I've already had from the EPA and the things. I'm going to try to work with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Since I'm going to be employing Missouri, I found Missouri veterans with the experience and the certifications I need that are in St. Louis looking for work right now. And so I'm going to try to tie a whole bunch of things together as a job creator, heal the planet thing, and appeal to a few, as well as the agricultural end in Missouri. So I'm going to work that angle.
So not so much working.
Go,
yeah. I'm sorry.
My end goal is to work on Westlake, but until I get the team behind me, I have to work on less polluted. Until I can get all them $50,000 a year people to lend their voice to my program, I have to prove it.
Right. So you're going to be, well, actually, there's probably a lot of sites in St. Louis that could use this remediation immediately. Like even people's homes, like on the Westlake Landfill Facebook page, I read that there's a woman's home. The EPA came over and measured 539 counts per minute in her yard. Like, isn't that a kind of person? I mean, does it actually when it
right? That's what my team's working towards fixing. But to work on radioactive soil, there are so many things. I can't just say, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to plant this plant, we're going to harvest it. At the end, we're going to do this with it. I have to. There's a 6-stage process that I have to go through, and each I have to submit site studies, and then that has to go to another guy another team member that says, hey, yes, the health risks are addressed or whatever. It's just
wow. So now this is going to be at the state level, because what I heard you say is that you're no longer to be attempting to work through the EPA. You're going to be working with the state Department of Natural Resources because they're more.
It's all the same rules.
Oh, okay.
They're all. It's just. I feel it's going to be easier here. Okay. Easier doing the state. I understood their rules and regulations easier than I understood the 80 pages of the EPA regulations.
There was 80 pages of EPA. This is exactly what I mean.
There's the one document is actually 277 pages.
Wow. For what was that for? To submit a proposal?
That only talks about one part of the proposal.
What? So this is what happens is they have created a system. This is what it appears to me, that the system has been created so that a small company, the average person who understands the process of soil remediation, it's almost like they have tailored the whole process so that you need a mega corporation with a huge staff of attorneys and lawyers and people who can talk that language to really manage it, who are people who are unconnected to the actual process to submit the proposals.
Yes.
Wow.
In a nutshell, that's it.
Wow. Well, which is why we.
And then on the next line, but they'll say small companies are encouraged to apply. Okay, and then they'll give a link there, and then they'll tell you what you have to do. Okay, and I don't have that money to hire them $50,000, a dozen of them people. But I can perform a test and show them that I know what I'm talking about. And then I think when I'm working directly with my state here is that they'd be like, okay, well, this guy's idea will work, and we're going to go with it. I don't, Anyway, part of what I've done is through the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. There is every spot that has toxic in the soil. and I whittled that list down to places where I can go to them individuals. I won't, and because I'm not working on nuclear soil, then I don't need that huge team.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I'm gonna break into the industry.
So you're going to remediate soils that do not have nuclear radiation on them.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
In the beginning.
Right.
The beginning.
Well, there's plenty enough pollution going on there, actually.
Right. There's like your CVS pharmacy is generally has a hazmat check mark next to their name.
Right. Right.
There's lots of places out there that have a hazmat trouble.
Right. Well, this is really exciting. I think that's really, I listened to a motivational speaker by the name of Les Brown, and he reminds us that it is possible. It's a lot of hard work, but it's possible for us to really overcome these challenges, because what's happened in the last, at least for myself, over my generation, and I'm 60, is that we really honestly believe that the government was taking care of this, that we were being protected, that all these systems had been set up to make sure none of this happened. And for me, Fukushima woke me up, and when I didn't even wake up when Fukushima happened. I woke up in 2012. And when I realized, digging into it is like peeling an onion. It's like the layers and layers. And what I've realized is it is possible for us to make the change that we need to make. It is possible. A man like you who's in Missouri, who's just a citizen, a concerned citizen, and I applaud you for your determination, because that is what it takes. Like, you're figuring out a way to get in there, and I also applaud you for not selling out and being willing to put your signature onto a huge amount of funding just so that you can get the money to do what you want, because you're smart enough to understand that they're not going to give you money for nothing. What they're going to want to do is fund you and then take away all your rights to actually do the work. And that's exactly how it would go. So we have about 10 minutes left on the show. Is there any big ideas that I've sort of skipped over here before I start asking you some other questions that you really want to get people to understand about what they can do to help you, or what is it that you would like to see happen for the citizens of St. Louis? And is there anything out there any of our listeners can do to help you move along in your process?
I can't, like we have an experiment growing, or we have plants growing right now. As much as I want the plants to grow faster, I can't make them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we're actively looking for non-nuclear contaminated soils to run tests with.
And what would those contamination soils be like? How do people know that they have a non-nuclear what would that look like? What would that be?
Yeah, without soil tests or without prior knowledge of, like, say, lead contamination, you wouldn't know.
Okay. So it's well, you find out because you end up getting sick when you're contaminated by lead. Everybody in the household seems to be sick. Or what about asbestos? Because asbestos is also everywhere too. Does that work?
Yes, but that's a future avenue that I think the company should work towards as well.
Okay.
Is St. Louis is full of is the old style loose insulation that has that most times was asbestos based, and a bigger percentage of the houses have it in there, and that's one thing that keeps the dirty coal machine pumping out their toxins, is because of all this old bad insulation in these houses that rightfully has to be removed before you put new good insulation in.
Oh, okay.
And like the cost to do that for a company that I've priced before was between $6,000 and $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
That makes the price, that just adds on to the cost of that person making their house energy efficient. and so they can't afford to do that. But what they can then afford to do is just keep paying their bill.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it's a dual-edged sword there.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. Well, that's kind of what I think that's part of the design, the sort of a win-lose, win for the utility companies, lose for us and the environmentalists. I mean, that's kind of the shock about it all. You know what I mean? Like, this is part of it. This is why I'm really proud of you for being determined to move through this and find a way through this maze. Like, just even sharing these two sites, and as I'm perusing them, I would really strongly recommend that people go there to cluein, CLU-IN.org. And it actually does show some things that happens, and it talks about market analysis upcoming. Is this where you got your internet seminars from?
That's one of the places. My
Wow.
yes, the Clue In, they all work together. They them, the EPA, the ITRC, they're all a bunch of people that all have their fingers in the pile. It
Right.
looks to me like.
Right. Yeah.
And they all maybe specialize in one area, and where another specializes in another area. I can't figure it out. But anyway, I just know they all have their fingers in the pile, and that I've gained good information from every source.
Well, look, I think that Flint, Michigan has really highlighted the necessity for people to actively get engaged and, not just trusting the EPA or any of these agencies. It's really important for us to educate ourselves, as we have all found out, because the people that we really believed were going to help us, really not so much. They're more interested in getting their paychecks without regard to their own families. I mean, that's the thing I find shocking. Now, what do you know? What is the current status of the cleanup on the Westlake landfill or the Coldwater Creek landfill? What is the EPA? What's their current status of what they're doing right now?
The Westlake Moms and the Coldwater Creek are the better areas to go with here. The word I'm getting on the street is that FUSRAP, which is a division of the U.S. Army, or FUSRAP is the Army that's designated for nuclear cleanup.
Right.
I kind of look at that. I'm like, yeah, that's good, but they all work together. They all created the same mess. Everybody's touting FUSRAP is really good because they're already working in the other areas of town. Well, how long have they been working there? What has taken them so long?
Thank you. I am so glad to hear someone from St. Louis.
There's, whoa, this is great. Guys, you've been here for years. Get busy. If it means taking the soil out and putting it in a box and shipping it somewhere else, which I don't like, but get after it. They need to work like independent contractors, not like government employees.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'm so glad to hear somebody from St. Louis say what I've been thinking. FUSRAP, by the way, for our listeners, means Formally Utilized Sites Remedial Action Program. Could they come up with a bigger mouthful of words to make it? I mean, really, honestly, it's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers runs the FUSRAP sites. But you are so completely right. They basically are the slow train. And part of that, I'm going to tell you what, Dr. John Goffman nailed it completely in his studies. He scientifically studied how our government responds and the nuclear industry responds to nuclear waste and nuclear pollution. And he literally scientifically proved that they underreport the negative effects of radiation by 90% and deny radiation causes harm. They are sticking with that story, and I guarantee you the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is on the same slow train. That's why we've gotten nothing. That's why they're like, I'm shocked. We took this mantle up for St. Louis in November, and these two pieces of legislation one is stuck in the House. Now, I will tell you this, on February 10th, is when the Environment and Land Works Committee in the House meets. So on Wednesday, they are going to meet. So, we really do need to call our elected officials and tell them your elected official, Congressman Lacey, is a member of that. And, they need to take up that legislation and get it out of the House. Although I will tell you this, it's not a cure-all, because Article 2 of both pieces of legislation as a cost savings method, Article 2 of each piece of legislation that just passed the Senate, and it probably will pass in the House if they can get it out of committee, because it doesn't cover the funding. But both pieces give complete immunity to any organization, any individual, for knowingly or unknowingly, past, present, or future, causing harm to any individuals or corporations, which means nobody's going to pay a price, nobody's held criminally liable, and the government doesn't have them. You know what I mean? There's no accountability allowed. That is the legislation that everybody's happy to have passed. I mean, I don't know. I find it shocking. So thank you.
The whole process I have found immensely. I have been disappointed.
Yes.
I'm disappointed in our government.
Yes, aren't we all?
But anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw it right in front of their face and say, hey, I can do this, and then go from there. And I think when I attended this webinar, the people actually care, but they can only teach it.
Right.
They can teach me how to do it. I have to do it. They can teach me how to present these forms and stuff, but I still have to do it. So it's not the people, it's probably not the division heads individually, but it's when it gets when we get a whole group think of people going that make up the final rule or approve or disapprove of how things are done. That's when the more people involved, the more chance there are of it not being accepted.
Well, I have to say that to me, it's just such a shock that most of our elected officials are willing to take the slow train on this. When we have people in the actual, in St. Louis who literally are dying, people are getting sick, and they're just like, well, you just have to accept the slow train. I find that just, I don't know.
It's repulsive.
Yeah,
it's repulsive.
It's an offense. It's an offense to everything that we have. It's unbelievable. So, I mean, I think it's very important for all of us to find ways to get actively engaged. So, hey, look, we have about 30 seconds left. Let me remind people that this is Scotty of MoHemp Hazmat Division of St. Louis, and his company's getting started. If there's any large funders out there, please send me an email at theageoffission at Gmail, and I will put you in touch with Scotty, because he could use some big funding for people who don't want to put their hands into the pie. So thank you for joining us, Scotty, and I encourage everybody to put your courage feet on. Thanks a lot, Scotty, for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. My best to everyone out there.